Hey everybody, in this game I tried to play a gambit that I wasn't familiar enough with. I screwed it up, went down a piece, and had to scramble. I'm playing the white pieces. I developed my knight with the idea being that they can't play e5, so usually they play d5. That's what my opponent does. Then I give him the free king pawn, and he accepts. That's the Tennison gambit, and I believe I'm supposed to move my knight to g5, but I already screwed that up, and I go to e5. So I'm already not playing the gambit correctly. My opponent develops his knight, which is totally fine, and I bring out my bishop with a pseudo fried liver attack idea on f7. The idea being that if he doesn't do anything to block it, I can capture with my bishop, and that's actually checkmate because my knight is covering that square. Unfortunately, it's easily thwarted with a pawn push, which is what he does, and I just play it safe and castle. I'm only down a point of material. My opponent tries to kick my knight while also setting up a castle for himself, and at this stage the safest play for me probably is just to retreat my knight to g4 because it is defended by the queen and his bishop is not attacking it. Instead, I try and defend my knight in this wacky way, which fails because my opponent can capture it en passant. I'm still not in terrible shape here. If I just recapture the pawn with my knight, I'll only be down 1 point of material and we'd basically be even in terms of positions. Instead, I play this needlessly aggressive knight sacrifice where basically I'm trading my knight for a pawn, and yeah, it screws up my opponent's castle structure, but not even by that much. So in retrospect, I kind of wish I hadn't done that. I try and recapture this problematic pawn. My development isn't great on this side. And my opponent's already setting up a pseudo castle. I'm down a full point of material, so I kind of need to make up some more ground with tactics. I pin my opponent's queen and knight with my bishop, with the idea being that I'm going to eventually try and bring my queen in to put even more pressure on the knight. And my opponent breaks the pin this way, and I think I'm being cute because I see a trade here, which will mean that his knight will no longer be defending this pawn, and I can grab that with my bishop. So I set up that trade, and then I get even a little bit cuter because I see this check. And the reason my opponent can't just retreat to the safety of his castle is because then I can just grab this pawn for free with my queen or my bishop, and if I grab with the bishop, then he'd have to go here, and I'd have a nice discovered attack. There's a bunch of stuff I could do. Unfortunately, my opponent sees that and retreats to the safety of his queen. And at this stage, I'm tempted to grab this free pawn, but then I notice his bishop can actually grab this free pawn, which is terrible because my knight is blocking the rook. And then if functionally he'd be able to get a pawn and a rook, and I would only get a bishop in return. And given that I'm already down 3 points of material, I don't want to go down another full piece. So I develop my knight, and he does this move. Feels kind of weak, but I get it. He's trying to, save the pawn, whatever. I bring my knight into the attack, and you might look at that and be like, hey, you're just giving up your b2 pawn. And I am, but I want to stay aggressive and bring as many pieces into the attack as I can, even if it costs me one more pawn. My opponent instead just develops his knight, and I throw this check. I don't really know what I didn't have a clear attack plan here, but because he can't block the check, I figured it limits him to one of 3 retreat squares, and it keeps the initiative up for me. So he retreats back in that direction, and I bring my rook to the d file. Anytime I can have a potential discovered attack on their queen, I think that might pay off. My opponent offers an exchange of queens. He's up 3 points of material, so I think that's a good move on his part, but I'm not prepared to do it. I don't want to do it unless it's on my terms. So I retreat with the idea being that I want to try and set up a kingside attack. My opponent retreats into his pseudo castle structure, so I guess this pawn push is somewhat justified because now he has a safer haven. I throw this attack on his queen, kind of defensively trying to protect these pawns, maybe eventually do b3 pawn push to have a better pawn structure, and he offers another exchange of queens, but that's when I try this weird combo sacrifice attack I throw the check, and he has to capture back with the queen here. Because if he captures back with the pawn or the rook, then I can do a discovered attack on his queen by throwing a check with my bishop. He does not recapture with the queen, so now I'm able to do that discovered attack with this check. He captures back, and now I win his queen back. It's not 100% free, but after all the exchanges, I went from being down 3 points of material to being up 1 point of material, and I feel like my position is just way stronger. My king is more secure. These pieces are not developed at all, and I think my pawns here being a bit more connected than his. He has 1, 2, 3 pawn islands, and I only have 2 pawn islands. I like my position a lot better. He makes this blunder because now I'm able to fork his rook and his king and win his rook just outright. So that's what I do. Now I'm up 6 points of material, and like I said, even before I won the rook, I liked my position better. He defends his bishop, but his bishop is pinned. He can't even really move the bishop because I can just win a rook straight up. So at this stage, I'm just going to be trying to grab as many free pawns as I can. He pushes, but that's not really going to do much because I've got my rook waiting for him in the back line. I grab another free pawn, and at this stage, my opponent resigns, and I can't really blame him. This pawn is going to pretty much be impossible to defend because, if he tries to bring his rook into it, his bishop isn't doing much. This pawn isn't going to do anything. I'm just going to keep pushing these pawns up. Anyway, I just wanted to share this game because I screwed up a gambit, went down material, and I was still able to recover through some nice tactics mid-game. Let me know in the comments section what you thought of the game or if you ever play the Tennison Gambit. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.